as I was thinking about making the video of this trip, I was wondering, am I going to do a video just like all of the videos I've done for my other trips, or like how do I make this different? And I'm always kind of thinking like, how do I make this video interesting, or like tell a new story or convey something differently? And then, as you're kind of like, all of the streets we're going down, you have like a different memory associated. I realized like, this video is about you and like your life here.
Yeah, and you're right. It is like a trip down memory lane for me. Certainly, all the places we visited.
Yeah,
and it's fun to add new memories too now.
So could you just tell me what years you studied here, what you were studying, and where you were studying?
Okay, it was 1963-64 at the University of Madrid. It was the first year of the Cal State program for foreign students to go over and study in a different country. I wanted to learn Spanish. I also wanted to go abroad, and I'd had a little high school Spanish, actually 3 years of high school Spanish. You had to pass a little test, and the test was actually read a newspaper article in Spanish. So you didn't have to produce, you just had to read, and then she asked questions in English about the article. So it was pretty easy. So I arrived with probably not enough skill to jump right in, but the program gave me some good basics, and then there's nothing like just living there.
Can you just draw some of like the major comparisons of like the political and economic situation and just what the culture and lifestyle was like compared to now?
Yeah, I would call Spain then a third world country, and today it's a fairly modern democracy of the European Union. Not super wealthy, but enough wealthy. People live middle class lives here. And in those days it was it was 25 years after their Civil War, and there were many lean years. It was also a dictatorship, and so there was not any equality, not even pretending to be equality. You either were one of Franco's people or not, and everybody was one of Franco's people. You didn't dare not be. So today you just have a much more open, freer feeling than when I was here. Although it surprised me going to a dictatorship that I did not feel particularly oppressed.
Okay, so you came here, you knew in advance that you were going into a country that was a dictatorship.
Yes.
And you don't feel like that necessarily restricted your life when you were here? What kind of different rules did you have to follow, or?
I think what was more restrictive was the culture, which was a very strong, traditional, religious, Catholic, Spanish culture, which an American nun had told me the Spanish Catholic Church is much different than the American Catholic Church, and so there was the culture was very restrictive to women, and as I had mentioned in the dormitory, our deadline was 10:30 p.m. period. It was a different atmosphere, certainly, than living in the dorm.
This is a teeny little road, and then the woods started right there. So where are we now?
We are at the entrance of the residencia. We may as well go in. I'll tell them who are in. Those are the steps we used to sit on singing with the Spanish girls in the evening.
Bueno, esto ya son todo clases. No es ya...
No quiero molestar.
No,
es interesante saber esto.
Sí. Esto es que está muy distinto.
Sí, todo. Okay. So, yeah, second floor, second window there, the double window. Yeah. And every room had a little shower, bed, a desk, a shower, a sink. But, it's really hard. There was, at the end of the hall, were places like, they called them tertulios, with some couches, and they said, if you want to talk with your friends, go down to the end of the hall. But we would sneak in. And then the nuns wore the habits with the long wooden beads, hanging down, and you could hear them coming down the hall. So we would hear the beads clicking, and someone would dive under the bed, and then we'd try to be really quiet until she'd peek in and say, "I thought I heard some voices." You're saying, "No, madre, I'm studying." Those were probably some of the baddest things we did. And then I think I had told you about, so Elba lived over there somewhere, one of those rooms down the hall, and she's the one that told us about Kennedy being shot.
Oh, wow.
But 2 weeks before, she had told us that Liz Taylor and Richard Burton had committed suicide or something, and so she messed with our minds. So when she said Kennedy was shot, we said, "No, that's that Elba. That's how cruel of her to joke like that, And then turns out he was.
Oh my gosh.
And that auditorium in the when you come in, they had one little TV, and they took us down there, and we watched and watched until we found out that yes, it was true.
And so how much later from when it happened did you find out about it?
Pretty much the same day, because you know how it was Friday, because in the United States, you know how Friday is
right
9 hours later. So it was Friday afternoon, I think. So it was probably a little later, but yeah. And I had that feeling like, oh my gosh, maybe should I go home? What's going to happen to my country? We don't have a president, and that's when I started getting Time magazine, because I wasn't sure
Oh yeah.
who to believe or what to read.
What do you feel as you were walking through those rooms and just seeing this again?
Well, a lot of joy, a lot of happiness that I did it. I'm so glad. It was such an important year in my life.
Yeah.
And I came very close to missing it. People tried to talk me out of borrowing money to do it, and it just turned out to be, I made great friends, and just had the experience of my life, really.
Yeah. And so now coming back, what you said, it's over 50 years later.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
You went back to the university today.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
It wasn't the first time you'd been back since you studied there.
Yeah, I was back there about 10 years ago. But the students look different. They dress different. Everything was so formal then. The girls all wore skirts, the boys all wore suits, and it was just much more formal. Today they look like normal college students. And and as I mentioned before, much more colorful. You see the the orange Nikes and the yellow Nikes, not the black leather shoes.
And so you were living with Spanish girls, made some Spanish friends, I assume. What were some of the differences that you noticed when living with them?
They were much more protected. We American girls, there were 10 of us American girls in the dorm, so we would talk to each other, unfortunately in English because it was too tempting. But we thought they were maybe a little more naive, more protected. So we didn't have a lot in common sometimes. I was trying to find a way to get out and do some physical things, and the Spanish girls, that was not part of their interest.
In terms of like exercise?
Yeah, exercise, yeah. So I finally found a fencing class. I wanted to do flamenco dancing, but there were no classes for that, so I did.
And so what was the fencing class like?
It was very interesting. It was held in the School of Law, and there were maybe 4 girls, the rest were guys, and we did mostly drills and techniques, and some small competitions. Over the years, I've lost track of almost everyone, so it's hard after that much long of a time.
Yeah, and when you first left, you didn't have a very easy way to communicate with all those people right after.
Right. Yeah, I think a big difference between a student now and a student then was it was not easy to communicate. So you write letters, and letters take a little more effort, I think.
Yeah.
And then postage is not cheap, and it takes, even the airmail was 4 days. And if you didn't do airmail, it was like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So you wait for a letter, and then you're busy, and then the letter's in Spanish, so you have to think, okay, I have to concentrate on this and get it translated. Then you have to write a letter in Spanish, and so it starts to slip away, some of the communications.
But there is one person you've kept in touch with, isn't there?
Yeah.
So
We actually lost track too, but with the internet, he has a very unusual name, a surname. The Spanish people have two surnames.
Right.
So rather than Smith, they would have Smith Dworak, like it's what I would have. And so he has Sanchez Buena Posada, and Buena Posada is a very unusual name. So in the I was going to Spain, and in the early 2000s, I thought, oh, well, let's see if he's still even alive. And
where did you look to?
Just on the internet, just Googled, and I didn't find him that first time. So I thought, oh, that's nothing. And then, that's not nothing, but that's to be expected. How are you going to find a person in the world? And so then I came back, and then I don't know, about maybe 6 months later, I got an email from him. I had put out, I had written, there was some suspicion of where he lived in Huelva and what he did for a living, so I'd sent an email to that place, and then I didn't hear anything. So that was a surprise. And we both have lived our lives. He married and had kids. I married and had kids.
And who was he when you were here?
He was my fencing teacher.
Your fencing teacher.
Yeah. And so I think because of that, there was, I saw more of him, even than a lot of the Spanish girls.
I think I remember when you told me about him, you said he would show you some things in Madrid as well and teach you some different things about Spanish.
Yeah. He was very good about, in addition to the fencing, he said, well, let me show you. And so he would show me, this is what tapas are. Everybody has to go have tapas. And everybody needs to see the Rosaleda, and everybody needs to see the Manzanares River.
And so you stayed in touch with him. Well, you lost touch with him, found him again, and then I get to meet him this week.
That's right. Yeah, he said, we correspond by email, and so I told him you were coming and that I was coming, and he said, and I had gone several years ago and met him, and he and his wife and I and another friend that was with me, we went to this place in Seville and saw flamenco, and he said it was a pretty good show. I mean, the Spaniards are, picky about their flamenco, but he said it was pretty good for flamenco, and I'm like, I can't tell good from bad, and so anyway, and he said, well, we'll take her to that flamenco place.
Well, that is so fun to, have that come back around. And, that you guys can still talk, and now I get to meet him and his grandkids.
Yeah. It's so much fun. It's more meaningful to visit a country when there are people that you know.
Yeah, I hope that in 50 years I can come back to France and,
take your granddaughter.
Yes.
Who might be studying there.
Yes. Oh, that would be...
Wouldn't that be something?
Crazy.
Yeah,
but we got to keep the tradition going for sure.
That's right.
I can't imagine not traveling, and I just, I'm so grateful that that's like a part of our family's heritage.
It is. It's part of our culture, isn't it? That's where that's a high priority. I think if more people traveled, starting at an early age, I think we would all understand each other better in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm grateful that I was given that as, at a young age, because you can't control that really when you're a kid, whether you travel or not. But, I mean, now that I'm, in university doing the exchange, it's definitely been a growing experience, and, just gives you perspective on international relations that you just can't get in your own country.
That's right.
Well, thanks for doing this interview with me.
This has been so much fun. Thank you for doing this trip with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Yeah, well, I hope that was okay.
That was
okay.
fabulous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that looks so good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I forgot that you could do the sound here.
Yeah, I need to stop the
This is
sound.
amazing.